That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Caddo Lake, the sophomore film directed by Logan George and Celine held, which will be available to stream on Max October 10th, 2024.
These directors have one other film?
Yeah, it was called Topside, and about the people living in tunnels that have to come topside.
Notably produced by
M. Night Shyamalan.
Y'all know M. Night.
It's very Shyamalanic.
Yes. What is Caddo Lake about? When an 8-year-old girl disappears on Caddo Lake, a series of past deaths and disappearances begin to link together, altering a broken family's history. What's your pull quote?
Caddo Lake rambles through nebulous, dysfunctional familial dynamics until it unleashes some intriguing twists in the third act, finally deserving of its audience's attention.
Mine. A clever twist quickly becomes convoluted, making Caddo Lake somewhat of a drag to get through. I think you enjoyed this more than I did.
Again, like I said, the third act feels kind of where it should have begun.
I agree. I was with it in the second hour, but it took a while to get me going, and I think I resent that. But
yeah, or it felt like it should have been like the pilot episode for something. Again, it gets just as its ending is it's becoming interesting to me.
And I actually think this would work better as a series, maybe, because major spoilers. If you have any interest in this movie, probably watch it before watching this review. But this, okay. The 8-year-old girl is the sister to Eliza Scanlen's character.
Ellie, yep.
And they live in Caddo Lake, which is like this swamp marshland type area between like Louisiana and Texas. Mm-hmm. One day the girl goes missing, and then we have everyone trying to find her. So that's happening. And it's supposed to be 2022. Simultaneously, in the same area, we have Dylan O'Brien. And he seems preoccupied with the death of his mother. She died some time ago, but we see that the opening scene, he accosts
a doctor in a parking lot,
saying like, I know you said my mom died due to complications from the seizure disorder, but I've been researching it and some of her symptoms don't make sense with what she was diagnosed with. And you can tell the doctor's like, we've been through this, like, your mama's gone. So Dylan's character is also, which feels very Shyamalan to me, fixated on the water levels at Caddo Lake. And he has like all these papers notating.
They coincided when his mom's seizures seemed to be at their worst.
When the water levels are low,
yes,
her symptoms come up. So we hear a bit about that. But everything comes to a head because we find out that Caddo Lake has a portal for time travel.
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah.
Basically, and that little 8-year-old girl, so we know this because one day, while Dylan O'Brien is out in the marsh in Caddo Lake, he comes across the 8-year-old girl who's been badly injured and is unconscious. So he picks her up and runs for help and runs towards the quarry or the mines where everyone works.
Well, there's a dam being built.
And a dam, yes.
And the crack in the dam is also part
of a big plot point. Yeah. So he runs over with this injured girl and is like, please help me. And immediately as the audience and Dylan, we know that something's not quite right because the men he runs towards are driving like a Beverly Hillbillies truck. And they look like not modern. And they're questioning him. And he's like, you know me, like my dad is so-and-so. He works with y'all. And they're confused. Like, who the hell are you talking about? Why are you carrying an injured girl? And he thinks to ask, well, what year is it? And these men say 1952.
When Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
So he runs. Dylan runs away.
He's able to piece it together because he also has this graph of documents that conveniently shows in 1952, that's when the dam was constructed. So he knows that he has the ability to travel to the times when it was in a drought status.
When the water was low.
But not really sure, he can't really pick and choose how.
No, so he ends up We find out that when we first met him, the first half of the film, he's in 2005. But as the audience, we just sort of see Eliza Scanlen's character and Dylan O'Brien's character running around Caddo Lake, assuming they're both in 2022. He was really in 2005. After he drops off the girl, he runs back through the portal and ends up in 2022. And part of the mystery of the missing 8-year-old girl is that we know that she was on this boat, like her little dinghy boat.
Her skiff.
Skiff. So Dylan O'Brien has that skiff riding through the lake when the police stop him. And they immediately assume he had something to do with it because A, he's in this missing girl's boat, and B, don't nobody know Dylan O'Brien in 2022.
His name is Paris.
Whose name is Paris. So he gets arrested. So that's happening. But, so there's like an even bigger twist beyond the time travel. We find out that the 8-year-old girl, the sister to Eliza, when Dylan took her back to 1952, they were able to rescue her. So she didn't die in 1952. So this girl from 2022 gets taken for help in 1952, and then I guess is considered an orphan. So she gets raised up and then ends up having children. She ends up becoming the mother of Paris. So Eliza Scanlen's 8-year-old daughter is also her step-grandmother.
Her 8-year-old half-sister.
Or her 8-year-old half-sister. It's confusing to me.
Yes.
But so there's that happening. Then Eliza's mom, she and those two have a contentious relationship because she never got to meet her dad. Her mom never wants to talk about her dad. And the mom just said, well, your dad ran away.
With another woman that I had a confrontation with.
With another woman. But then we see Eliza Scanlen go back to 2005.
And do some sleuthing.
And do some sleuthing at an internet cafe where she only has 10 minutes free.
God, wasn't that miserable having to go to places like that? No.
And we find out that Eliza Scanlen's dad is Dylan O'Brien. And he didn't run away. He
disappeared.
He went through the time portal to 2022 and died in 2022 because the police were chasing him and he jumped off a bridge. And then that confrontation that the mom had was with Eliza Scanlen.
Her own daughter.
Her own daughter. So that all gets cleared up. And in the very end, Eliza Scanlen comes back to 2022, first she tells her stepdad that, what's the 8-year-old girl's name? Anna's okay. Which I thought was so weird because if I would have been the stepdad, I would have thought like,
what do you know about
What do you know?
What's happening?
Then she goes to her mom and says, I'm sorry, and shows her a picture of Anna from 1952, like a school picture.
That she printed from 2005.
That she printed from 2005. And then Dylan O'Brien's character in 2022 carjacked the mom. And she saw him. So she was so she was telling people like, the person who carjacked me looked like my baby's daddy from 2005. Because he would have looked the same. And so Eliza's character tells her mom that that's him and that like Anna's back in 1952.
Yes. There's also a matter of convenience of Paris's dad then from 2005 is on an oxygen tank and he just so happens to be in the hospital on his deathbed in 2022 when Dylan is arrested. Okay.
So it feels like how me trying to explain it just felt like it all came like I was bum rushed with all these twists, which I found really exhilarating. But the first hour felt like it was a drag. It takes a while to get to the girl going missing.
Well, and it just feels repetitive for a minute too, as we have to show the process of how they are going back and forth.
Right.
In the woods.
Okay. What did I like? I think the bones of the story, this time travel twist and how people are connected and how people thought someone went missing, but really they went back or forward in time. That's cool. But as we know with time travel stories, they can get confusing very quickly. Even the most basic, well done ones, like I'm thinking Back to the Future, you still have to and then there are tons of examples where they just go fully off the rails. I'm thinking of like the movie Time Crimes.
I like Time Crime, Nacho Vigilando.
I like that one because they kept it very simple. Like we're isolated to this one area with.
And the same, I haven't seen that movie in like 17 years now, but people keep popping the same character because of the time travel. There's multiple versions of him. And there's a scene in particular in this when Eliza Scanlen
sees herself.
When she sees herself from just 3 days before or whatever, like that's very time crimesy. I also wanted it to be like, I know I've referenced this film before, but there's a 1997 film called The Sticky Fingers of Time from Hilary Brower, which I really liked, which I was wanting it to feel more like that. But it was frustrating in a way, that essence of being stuck in a time that it's harmful for you to be stuck in was giving me Kindred, Octavia E. Butler's classic, which was recently made into a miniseries, which I have not seen. But it towards the end kind of has that element as well.
I feel like if we would have moved the gag of the time travel up sooner and then work out who is who, then it probably would have been more suitable to me. But then maybe that feels like an episode of Quantum Leap. I don't know.
But it would have made a better amount of time for potential catharsis, because the stuff we get, that just doesn't work for me. Like, Anna's fine. How do you know that? And yeah, that was Dad. We have some things to talk about.
Right. I would have preferred to spend more time sorting those things out.
Like it could have felt like Peggy Sue Got Married. Like this.
Oh, that's a really good example.
Which ends up, as I recall, being a dream. Kind of, but yeah, this what happens when you would have the opportunity to do that, and what does it mean?
But getting back to what I liked, I thought Dylan O'Brien did a fine job. The actors playing.
We just saw him play Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, I thought he was excellent in Saturday Night. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he did a fine job in this movie.
And we forgot about Pony Boy from earlier this year at Sundance.
That's right. Which he was fun in. Mm-hmm. But I thought he was fine. Like, he did a fine job in this one. And then the two actors playing the redhead. So like Eliza's mother and Dylan's girlfriend.
Lauren Ambrose from 6 Feet Under, who I thought was actually quite great as a frustrated mother.
I thought she was probably my favorite character.
Yeah, and Diana Hopper plays her younger self, which of course you don't know until the third act. But
beautiful hair.
I had to, because IMDb or Wikipedia doesn't list the character names yet.
Because it would spoil it.
Well, you'd think so, but Celeste, Lauren Ambrose, as her younger self, is known as C.
So I like them. Dylan O'Brien's, the actor playing the dad, did a fine job. Ben. The stepdad of Eliza was fine.
Oh yeah, Eric Lange, who we know as a terrible, horrible racist in Antebellum.
Yeah, I liked him too. And I hate to say it, but I did not care for Eliza Scanlen.
Eliza Scanlen. Mm-hmm.
Scanlen. And then, again, talking about little kids, but I didn't think the 8-year-old sister, that performance wasn't at everyone else's level.
Carolyn Falk, yeah.
And
I think Scanlen, Ellie, is supposed to be a frustrating character. She's a teenager. I think you've missed some of her better work in like Greta Gerwig's version of Little Women and Baby Teeth. It
was just a rough start for this like sort of annoying, because she's being a little bratty because she's mad at her mom that she won't talk about her dad. But it's like her stepdad is not new. Like, he's been around for a long time.
He's not new and seems quite kind and patient with her.
So I know teenagers can be like that, but it was a rough start, especially because I'm like, okay, well, what's happening? And when is this 8-year-old girl going missing?
And we spend a lot of time with her.
I also thought Eliza Scanlen reminded me of a young Fortune Feimster in this movie. Okay, we also get clued into maybe there's something going on with time, because Eliza Scanlen's character is saying she saw wolves at the lake. Mm-hmm. And people are telling her like,
those haven't been here.
Yeah, we haven't had wolves here for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, and then we see them again when we go back in time. Then we also, these little callbacks, like the necklace.
Yes, which is part of the poster art too.
Was a little confusing.
Because it's the part of that necklace, that's the image that's in on the water, on the surface of the water in the poster.
Because when Dylan is out in the lake one day working, he finds the necklace and then gives it to his girlfriend.
C.
But then then that's a necklace that her mom had, but then when she goes back and sees it in some lady's car, she breaks into the car to steal. That was a lot for me. Because that necklace was just like one of those 69 of yin and yang.
Yeah.
But it looks like 69 to me. That's not like a unique piece of jewelry. And she breaks into this truck to steal it, and that's what causes the confrontation with who turns out to be her own mother.
And there's also a dinner scene with Dylan O'Brien. Someone's like, 1999, that was a really good year with all these young people. It's like, how old are you?
Yeah, when he said that, I was confused, but then we realized, oh, that's because he's in 2005.
Yeah.
Again, I would have liked to spend more time with the stronger characters, like the mom, because we find out that there's a history with like her and Eliza's character and like Child Protective Services and...
Yeah, well, I mean, Signs is also a good reference, but because there's a level of because we get to spend a lot of time with those characters in Signs and learn about the trauma that they've overcome and how it's led them to choices they've made now and things they've never gotten over. But there's not enough time for that here. It does feel like we're treading water a lot with leading up to the mechanism of the story, which I think could have been a lot more concise.
So Dylan's character saying that his mom had symptoms that didn't match the disorder she was diagnosed with really only amounts to her bleeding from her ears.
Myoclonic seizures.
But then we realized that whenever people pass through that time portal, that is what happens. Their ears start bleeding. So we see Dylan's ears bleeding, Eliza's ear was bleeding.
Yeah, I'd have to also believe that there are other members of the community besides just this family that pass through there.
I thought that too, because I feel like people who live in areas like that, they do explore that area, right? Like it's not just these two. So yeah, how many people have done this?
Whether on foot or through
I
boats?
really think it's a clever idea, and I think this would work so well as a series where this community. Like, I can imagine, like, just even, like, the first few episodes of the first season being people experiencing this and not telling each other. And then as the series goes on...
Well, and you could almost have, like, a mechanism like that Zoe Kravitz movie, Blink Twice, where people are, like, suddenly not remembering somebody that wasn't not there because they've changed the timeline.
Well, and imagine if this town realizes that they have this thing, and so they decide to build a dam to keep the water levels low, so that they can make use of it and all the kind of stuff all the insidious things you could do. Like, it's just ripe for exploration. As it is, it takes a long time to get there. So I was a little frustrated. In the end, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, you could make a great neo-noir with that mechanism.
Yeah.
Like sex trafficking.
That's what comes to your mind?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about what nasty people do with other humans.
Now we're going to be demonetized. What would you give Caddo Lake?
3.
I think it's okay. I would give it 2.5 out of 5. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.